The 7th District, that's a toss-up between Dave Brat and Abigail Spanberger. And Dave's going to be joining us right now. Welcome to the show, 7th District Congressman Dr. Dave Brat. Thanks for being here, Congressman.
Hey, you got it, John. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi will be the speaker if they win, and the head of financial services, in case people don't know, will be Maxine Waters. So just picture the economy with the Democrats in charge, and we can get into the issues, but just my opponent mirrors Pelosi. It doesn't matter whether it's Pelosi or Senator Elizabeth Warren. They're in favor of getting rid of the tax cuts. They're in favor of open borders. They're in favor of sanctuary cities, and they're in favor of a $32 trillion health care plan. They were in favor of that until they did the analysis. And our Richmond Times-Dispatch editorial page said it's $32 trillion, and you'd have to double everyone's personal tax rates and the corporate rate to pay for that. Now they're not talking so loudly about that policy. And so after Labor Day, I think the people are going to start paying attention to these issues, and I think we're going to win handily because of that. And the economy growing at 4.2 last quarter and 4.6 upcoming. If that's the real number, it's game over.
So here are the issues, Congressman, and we're going to get to Abigail and then go on to some of the other things that I want to get your opinion on. But when I had Abigail Spanberger on my show on last week, I can't remember the day, maybe Thursday, I think, she said unequivocally that she opposes the $32 trillion Medicare for All Bernie plan. And she wanted to come on the record as opposing that. But you just kind of said that she's lumped in with those. So that's not really accurate, right? Because she said she's not going to be in favor of that.
Well, she was in favor of it until the $32 trillion came out. And then she says, well, maybe not that, but something like it. Well, the voters, I think, can see that, right? So that's where the media haven't done any stories on her on any of these policy agendas. It's very hard to find any policy agenda out of any Democrat. And Spanberger is very similar on that. And so after she does the polling, I mean, maybe she's flip-flopped on that position, but she's still in favor of Obamacare X and has said in principle she wants to get to single payer. And so, no, I don't buy that at all. She stated very clearly what her philosophy is, and that guides you toward a socialized health care program.
Well, I think one of the other issues, Abigail Spanberger also said that she wouldn't support Nancy Pelosi for speaker, but I really kind of think that's a red herring because most of the Democrats that I talk to that are senior elected officials, I'm not talking about candidates, but like they're in Congress, all of them have told me, look, if we win control of the House, Nancy Pelosi is going to be the speaker. Here's why. She's raising all the money. I mean, they're spending their money. So maybe in a caucus meeting, in a private ballot, we'll see what happens. But you're going to go publicly against Pelosi on the floor of the House when you've spent, $1 million, $2 million of the money she raised. The person was like, good luck with that. And two people told me that she is going to be speaker if the Democrats win, and she has a very and one of the two said, look, Nancy Pelosi has one of the best records of keeping Democrats in line in the history of the Democratic House ever. Like if she has a meeting and gets them all together, they're going to go with her. Because if not, as you know, noncompliance is met with swift consequences in the Democratic Party.
I mean, on that issue, I mean, Spanberger also said she wasn't going to vote for Paul Ryan, and so she doesn't know that Paul Ryan's not going to be there next year. So, I mean, I'm not sure what she knows about how D.C. works that way. But on Pelosi, if she says she's not going to vote for Pelosi, maybe the party gave her, leeway in the short term to say that. But more importantly, her philosophy is that she's not going to vote against Pelosi because Pelosi is too conservative for her, right? She's endorsed by Senator Elizabeth Warren, which is hard to the left on every range of issues that we're talking about, right? Her and Bernie want the $32 trillion health care package that Spanberger wants and the open borders and to get rid of tax cuts. And all of that will drive the economy into recession immediately, right? A $32 trillion tax increase, and all the gains are gone. You're back into recession like the Obama economy. And that's what's at stake. So I hope people vote for their kids and grandkids and not based on this partisan, political rhetoric that's going around.
Let's get to the Spanberger release of the personnel private documents. It really doesn't feel good to anybody because your private information is out there and you feel very violated by it. But one of the things that Abigail Spanberger said on the Thursday, Congressman, is that her campaign had done a FOIA on herself in order to get whatever information is out there, which is not atypical of new candidates. You want to see, okay, what did I do that's actually out there? And she said when they did the FOIA, none of this came back. So then what I did is I asked her campaign yesterday for verification. They did the FOIA. They haven't responded back. Do you find that odd?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the press should be doing, is asking questions. And just to make it absolutely clear, revealing people's private information, I'm one of the strongest people in Congress for personal privacy. So none of her private information should have been given over. Social Security, medical records, all that. I want to go on the record just very clearly on that.
That's bad.
But then the mainstream press doesn't go on and investigate. That's just the process issue. Let's see, did she do a FOIA or not? She was casting judgment on this person, myself, etc. All of that ended up being false. And I mean false. I mean not true, as in false, right? And so has she walked back any of that? And of course not, because the press doesn't hold her to any standard. There's no reporting on that. The post office came out and said it's all on them. It was their error. And then the aspects of the school was never reported on in our local paper, in passing maybe a sentence or so. But can you imagine if a Republican worked for a Saudi Islamic training school dubbed Terror High on the first Google you pass? I mean, can you imagine if a Republican worked for something that was anti-Christian, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-American, and anti-woman? I mean, just look at it the other way. What would the mainstream press do? Right? The schools produce terrorists. And Spanberger last week said, she went to the New York Times and said, I'm proud of everything in my record. I'm proud of everything I did. And so that the press needs to ask her about that. Are you proud of working for a school that is anti-Israel, anti-Christian, anti-American, anti-woman? I mean, that is staggering that the press hasn't asked a question. For a Republican, can you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? So there's a ton of questions. And the press hasn't asked her about her basic public policy positions on anything significant either. So voters deserve to know. That's the key piece. We don't want secret personal information revealed at all. But a biography, I mean, you know how I was vetted, right? Chuck Todd, et cetera, came after me, vetted every sentence I ever wrote forever. And I'm proud of my track record. And so that's fine. I was vetted, but she hasn't been vetted yet.
This is considered to be one of the most interesting and toughest races in America that might define who controls the House come 2019. And Spanberger, probably one of the strongest candidates I think the Democrats have put up in the United States. That's why this is so close. Dave, I went to this Saudi Academy. When I had Abigail on my show, she said she taught there as a substitute teacher for English, got the job in between or waiting for her security clearances to go through for her job with the CIA. But the Political Action Committee that obtained the information that Abigail had, former CIA officer, had worked at the Islamic Saudi Academy. Now, this is a high school in Northern Virginia that's graduated so many prominent Islamic terrorists that the Associated Press, of all people, dubbed it Terror High, and a bipartisan group of senators, U.S. senators, tried to shut it down. But basically, Spanberger said, look, I got a job there teaching English. I mean, do you really think that? Because on the other hand, she goes into the CIA to fight terror cells. I mean, why would she go to a Saudi school to promote something that she then went to fight with the CIA? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, do you think this is really an issue in the campaign?
That's up to the voters, and that's the kind of question that the press should ask her. And that's all we need, right? We just need truth and transparency. And the point is the judgment of going to it. You can ask a series of questions, but why would anyone go to work for a school that is openly, right? It's funded by the Saudis. It's fundamentalist. I think Spanberger's on the record saying she's against any intervention of faith in the public sphere and in politics. And so it's very odd that she goes to work for a school that is avowedly, right? I mean, the statements they've made on Israel, Jewish people, Christians, women, etc. Why would one go to work for that? So I do think it is an issue, and someone needs to ask her about her philosophy and why she did go to work there, right? I mean, so I think it's a big deal, and we'll see. We'll see what the voters want to know, the basic facts, and so far they have not been reported. As you just said, it was Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, and the AP who reported on Terror High, and then she went to the New York Times after all of this is known and says, "I'm proud of everything I've done." So that's a little different than, what did she know back then versus now. In retrospect, she doesn't even walk anything back. She says everything's, I'm proud of it all. And that, to me, is fairly staggering.
I respect her record in the CIA. I understand she got very high grades by her bosses and colleagues and whatnot. So I respect that. And I understand that people have to get a job, and I get that. But I would say that she really does owe it to the voters to explain the thinking. Because if you look at Abigail's education and background, Dave, I mean, she couldn't have gotten a job anywhere. I mean, she's a very bright woman with pretty strong academics behind her. So if you needed a job in the middle of another job, she could have gotten it anywhere. She could have substitute taught at any school in the U.S., right? So I think, she does have to answer the question, why did she pick that? And how did that make any sense? And maybe the answer is, we don't know what the answer is, but if it was to learn about what I'm going to go fight, that's an answer. But right now she hasn't given an answer. So it's odd. And I think
right.
I think Abigail
owes it. Even if she gives that answer, she didn't walk back any of the school's activities or anything. And so that's fairly staggering.
Yeah, I mean, I think she needs to answer that, because whenever you take a job with somebody, I mean, you're going to make a decision based on the company. Right now, if you're substitute teaching in the school system as a whole, and you get up at 6 a.m. I've done this as a basketball coach back in the day. I was a substitute when I had to do that, and you get an email at 5:30 a.m. and they tell you where to go. Okay, I get it, but this is not that. I mean, this is a school system.
Yeah, and one of the other things, kind of related to when we're talking about her $32 trillion healthcare piece that she shifts on. After it comes out, why isn't this on her bio? If she's proud of her teaching, why did she hide this from voters? Why is it not on her biography?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, most candidates elected, right? So why isn't this teaching at the Islamic, Saudi Terror High on her resume? And if that's not there, what else isn't there, right? And so now you go forward, and she says, I'm proud of everything after the fact. But before the fact, she was not putting that out to the voters. And so that's the major question. What else is on the bio that we don't know of? And then she says she FOIA'd herself. Let's see that. I want to see that.
Yeah, I think these are the questions. You said you FOIA'd yourself. Let's see the evidence of that. I think that's a fair question for any journalist to ask, and I will certainly do that. And then really an explanation on the Saudi teaching, why you chose that. I mean, there's got to be a reason behind it, because she could have got a job anywhere, right? That just really, I think, has to be answered. And, maybe she simply just got the job and didn't do that research. Whatever the answer is, there needs to be an answer, and I just don't think you can blow it off. So hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of it. Congressman, the Washington Post reported late last week that the United States soon plans to cancel funding to a UN agency that provides humanitarian help to Palestinian refugees. The administration's expected to call for a steep reduction in the number of Palestinians recognized as refugees and the right to return to the land contested with Israel, Gaza, obviously. Where are we going with this?
Yeah, I've been following that. I mean, that's half of it. The other half of it is the expectations on Palestine living up to universal norms, et cetera. And so it's kind of like tariffs and paying your way for Europe, et cetera. The Trump administration is just trying to have clear lines across the board that everyone has to live up to. And so we'll see. I'm going to check on that. I go up today back to D.C., and we'll be looking into all of that. But it's basically why are we rewarding folks, like we reward European countries. We pay for the entire post-World War II, Bretton Woods liberal order. We pay for the Marshall Plan. We pay for the IMF, the World Bank, the United Nations in general. We fund more than everybody else. Everybody else is not paying their fair share, and they acknowledge that. And so if we're paying the bulk of the money, the American people want to see, hey, what's going on when people are just asked to live up to their share and living up to these standards. And I think that's what's going on.
Congressman, if you get reelected to a third term, let me just ask you something straight out. We had another U.S. soldier killed yesterday in Afghanistan. The president, against what I think was his better judgment, went forward with the McMaster's War, put another 5,000 troops in Afghanistan. As you know, I was opposed to it because he campaigned and said he would get out. Now we're supporting the Saudi Emirates coalition in Yemen. 50,000 civilians have died. They just blew up a bus the other day. The bombs were made in the United States, part of the military-industrial complex. We're involved in that. We're training their pilots. I mean, the whole thing is horrific, what is happening in Yemen. Let me just ask you something straight out, Congressman, if I may. If you get to a third term, are you going to demand, regardless of who the speaker is, are you going to go in his office or hers and demand a new AUMF? Because we continue to be involved, Congressman, in these foreign entanglements with an AUMF that was based on the 9/11 attack 17 years ago. When are we going to get a new AUMF?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And just so people know, I've been involved in every initiative and every bill and every resolution in order to do that, to get a new AUMF. And unfortunately, the numbers aren't there. It just dies before it gets there. I put in, balanced budget stuff. I put in term limit stuff. I put in new AUMF stuff. And then the reason this matters is we just had several veterans, military academy, the kids going off to the academy meetings over the last couple of weeks when I've been back in the district. And the veterans roundtable we had, with 40 leaders from all the veteran services, all the veterans themselves and experts in the field, and especially on benefits claims, saying there's going to be a huge wave coming, right? We had the atomic vets and then Agent Orange in Vietnam and the huge waves of benefits claims, et cetera, and it's going to be swamped by what's coming at us with all the young men and women who serve our country and who have been in harm's way over the last decade, 2 decades, and are still in harm's way in a terrible position. And we owe it to them. At the federal level, there's no higher commitment than national defense and taking care of the troops
we get
and
that,
the veterans
but look,
who served.
I'm running out of time, Dave. I
we're
gotta
all
go.
over it, because if we don't put an end to this, that's our young men and women coming back.
I just want a new AUMF, and I want the administration to go in and defend why we're in Yemen, why we're in Afghanistan, why we're in Syria, and we'll let the chips fall. They may have to go.